A conservative media company in the US has been raided, channels are being shut down, devices have been confiscated, and the smear campaign is on fire. But once again, we have to ask ourselves, are we being told the truth? Welcome to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. If you are new here, welcome. I do appreciate you clicking on the video to watch it. And since you are here, I would love it if you would help me to grow this channel and hit that subscribe button now. And of course, turn on the notifications to make sure that you never miss an upload. And as for those of you that are returning, you know that I truly appreciate your continued support on my channel. And I would love it if you would make sure that you are subscribed as well. Guys, this story came out a few days ago and it has been really bothering me since then. So let's just get into it. So you may have heard that within the last few days, popular conservative commentator Chen and her husband Donavan were indicted by the Department of Justice for allegedly partnering with two employees of RT out of Russia to push pro-Russia messaging through their Tennessee-based company, Tenet Media. It's being alleged that RT provided $10 million in total payments for Lauren and her husband to help start and fund their media company and the commentators they had contracted to provide content in exchange for spreading commentary that favored Russian interests, like fueling domestic division in the US, to their audiences in America. As far as contributors to the platform, I believe Taylor Hansen is exclusively with Tenet Media. There's Lauren Southern and Matt Christensen that have contributed in some way. Most are independent creators who signed on to stream on Tenet or have their content added to the platform in some way, but they were not exclusive to Tenet. They still had their own channels and separate businesses going with their already established names and audiences. Those contributors are Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and Dave Rubin. Based on the indictment and honest reporting of this situation, because there's a lot of very dishonest reporting of this situation, the contributors and commentators that Lauren and her husband recruited to work with Tenet Media did not know the source of the funding for this company, and they are victims as well. Also going to read a little bit from this article from the New York Post to give you more details and also give you a better understanding of how this all came to light, because even though we have been able to deduce who is all involved in this mess, none of these people are specifically named in the official document. This article, it says, a secret Russian influence campaign allegedly paid $10 million to prop up a media company hosting what it saw as like-minded right-wing commentators in the US, including popular pundits like Benny Johnson, Dave Rubin, and Tim Pool. The Justice Department indicted two employees of the Russian state-controlled media outlet RT on Wednesday for acting as unregistered foreign agents and laundering $9.7 million in payments to a Tennessee media company to allegedly promote pro-Kremlin propaganda. The employees, Konstantin Kalashnikov, 31, and Elena Afanasieva, 27, are at large, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, after floating for almost a year. The media entity that posted nearly 2,000 videos that have garnered more than 16 million views on YouTube alone. Neither the company nor the content creators associated with it were named in the indictment, though other details point to it being the Nashville-based Tenet Media, whose founders allegedly deceived conservative influencers that may have included Johnson, Rubin, and Pool. The description of the company in the indictment matches Tenet's own description on the website as a network of heterodox commentators that focus on Western political and cultural issues. The Tennessee Department of State records also confirmed Tenet incorporated as a business on January 19, 2022, the same date mentioned in the indictment. Other business records and identifying characteristics in the unsealed indictment point to Lauren Chen, a former RT commentator who now works as a host for Blaze TV and as a contributor to the conservative Turning Point USA as the primary founder of Tenet, along with her husband, Donavan. Along with a third, unnamed Tenet commentator, the conservative influencers raked in at least $8.7 million from Tenet between October 2023 and August 2024 via dozens of wire transfers from shell companies in Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, and Mauritius. Afanasieva used fictitious personas to coax the conservative provocateurs into signing on for the shooting, editing, and posting of hundreds of videos, which included commentary on immigration, inflation, and other domestic and foreign policy issues. While the views expressed in the videos are not uniform, the subject matter and content of the videos are often consistent with the government of Russia's interest in amplifying U.S. domestic divisions in order to weaken U.S. opposition to core government of Russia interests, such as its ongoing war in Ukraine, federal prosecutors wrote in the indictment. Afanasyeva fabricated the accomplished financier named Edward Gregorian as the Western European professional behind the funding, though either Johnson or Rubin apparently took issue with a fake copy of his CV listing proud advocacy of social justice causes. In the rest of the article, it just has some quotes from the commentators that have been associated with this situation, all of them saying that they didn't know where the funding was coming from and that they did take issue with the very minimal information that they were provided about this investor. But due to their minimal and non-exclusive association with Tenet, perhaps they didn't feel that more details were needed. I've heard a lot of people talk about this. I heard a take from Megyn Kelly, Ben Shapiro talked to Tim Pool, Jeremy over at The Quartering had some things to say about it, and I also discussed it on a brief live stream with some other commentators on Saturday evening. So there have been so many different takes and contributing factors, but I myself have a lot of thoughts on this issue. Accusations against Lauren and Liam are true, then yes, they should face the appropriate legal consequences for whatever they've been doing. If they knowingly took millions of dollars from these two RT employees under the agreement that they would operate on behalf of Russian interests in influencing American politics, culture, elections, etc., or they fail to cross their T's and dot their I's in any way, they are going to be in a lot of trouble. There's no doubt about that. But on the other hand, after reading the entire indictment myself, I think there is absolutely reason to believe that Lauren and Liam were deceived as well. And I will explain why. But of course, this is just my interpretation and opinion. So calm down, YouTube. Don't delete my channel. The way that this is being reported is that Lauren and Liam willingly and knowingly took $10 million from RT, working with their two employees, Konstantin Kalashnikov and Elena Afanasyeva, agreeing to use the money for various expenses related to Tenet Media, to post a certain number of videos, to highlight specific stories that were fed to them, and that they all worked together to recruit other conservative commentators to work with this company. But they all knew these other commentators wouldn't do it if they knew the money was coming from Russia. So they all created this fake persona, Edward Gregorian, as a front to trick these other conservative personalities into working with them, and that Lauren, Liam, and these RT employees were all in on it. As I said before, the other commentators agreed to come on with Tenet Media in some capacity, and they were told that the investor was Edward Gregorian. But when they all asked for more info on him, they were only provided a brief profile, but they didn't know that he wasn't real, or that this was really RT employees behind all of it, or that the funding was actually coming from them. After reading this very confusing document, I'm personally willing to offer another possibility about what happened. Again, this is just my interpretation of it. This is just what I got from this indictment, and I could be completely wrong, so don't come for me. So it sounds to me like these two RT employees, Konstantin and Elena, created this persona, Edward Gregorian, as a front to partner with Lauren and Liam. Maybe they knew that Lauren and Liam wanted to start their own media company and contacted them for a potential working relationship. Maybe they knew Lauren's name for already having a previous connection to RT due to the opinion pieces that she contributed to. Who knows? So they connected under this persona of the wealthy French businessman, Edward, and after discussions, they agreed to move forward with this partnership. Once the ball started rolling, these other two personas were created. I believe it's Helena Shidra and Victoria Pesty, and they became the primary contacts in the deal, and they were the two people that Lauren and Liam primarily connected with. They began conversations about bringing in other commentators who were Tim, Benny, and Dave, and also Lauren and Matt. It sounds like Liam, Lauren's husband, was the one doing most of the communicating, as he was the official CEO of Tenet. So he approached these other people, makes an offer to them to join this platform. These commentators respond and say it's going to cost a lot more. Liam goes to Helena and Victoria and says that they want a lot more, thinking that the investor isn't going to pay that much. But the investor comes back and says, that sounds great, bring them on. Later, as they are moving forward, one of the associates of Edward told Liam and Lauren that as the workload was growing, that the marketing and managing for the new platform social media accounts would be handled by a Russian firm that the associates hired, that Edward hired, not Lauren and Liam. They told Tenet Media that they would still be the CEOs of their own company, that they would still have operational control of things, and they were welcome to hire people locally to them to assist, but that this Russian firm would be part of their conversations and part of the deal now. From what I can tell, these two RT employees consistently represented themselves as these fake associates of their fake investor, Edward Gregorian. But overall, it seems like Lauren and Liam truly thought they were working with Edward, his associates, and the Russian firm hired by him. As it turns out, as many personas as there were, including Edward Gregorian, his associates, and this Russian firm, they were all being run by the same two people, these two RT employees, Elena and Koshintin, for their Russian agenda. And that's why I think that there's a possibility that Lauren and Liam themselves truly didn't know, because there were so many middlemen in between them and RT. Now, in the indictment, it does refer to some communications where Liam is referring to the Russians and invoices that were sent to the Russians. However, it seems like these invoices were sent to the firm, and that's who he was referring to, not RT. I know that that's kind of a lot to follow, but that is honestly what I got from this whole thing. And we can all have thoughts and opinions about whether, even if Lauren and Liam didn't initially know, why would they not have seen any red flags along the way? But I personally have never started a media company. I have never personally been involved in a deal like this. I know that it's not uncommon to have local, national, and international investors in these types of companies. So it's really hard to say what it is that they knew. And that's what it really comes down to. What did they know and when did they know it? Or on the other hand, it is entirely possible that they're just greedy criminals and they didn't care about what they were doing. They were just excited to have their own media company and the money to do it. And they didn't care about the potential criminal repercussions of their actions. Since this all broke, YouTube has removed all of Lauren's channels, including her Mediaholic channel, which she mainly talked about movies, culture, Hollywood entertainment, with a bit of a political spin on it. And also Blaze TV, the conservative media company that Lauren was a contributor to as well, apparently either fired or canceled their contract with her. I'm not entirely sure what her working relationship with them was. And I can understand the Blaze taking immediate action, whether they entirely cut ties or just set all of Lauren's content to unlisted or private, which are things you can do if you don't want to entirely delete content on your channel and might want to access it later or make it public again at some point once the dust settles. But it's really important for us to understand that thus far, everything we've heard are allegations. An indictment is not a criminal charge. It's a formal complaint, and it does not mean guilty. I did hear that on the day that the indictment was unsealed, either Lauren's studio or home was raided. All of their electronics were confiscated. So if people are wondering why Lauren has gone completely silent, it's probably because, one, she doesn't have anything to actually access social media with, but two, for obvious reasons, it's probably best if she doesn't post anything until her legal team advises her to do so. But silence does not mean guilt either. So to try to wrap this all up, let me give you a few thoughts, things to chew on, if you will, because there's so much of this that just does not pass the sniff test for me. First, I've personally been listening to Lauren's content for a long time. I have followed her for a long time. I don't agree with everything that she says, but there's no one that I follow that I agree with 100% of the time. Her content seems very middle of the road to me. At times, I think that she tries to play both sides too much and tries to appease everyone. But secondly, the idea is that supposedly her media company was being used by Russia to influence people to vote for Trump. But I'm sorry, if you've ever seen any of Lauren's, Tim's, or Dave's content, you know that while they will vote for Trump, they have offered plenty of criticisms of this man and often encourage their audience to think twice about their support for him. And as far as Benny Johnson, I remember before Trump was announced as the official Republican candidate, Benny got viciously attacked by hardcore mega people for covering Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign. So if Tenet Media was supposed to be this pro-Trump media company reading scripts that were favorable to Russian interests, actual commentary coming from these channels just does not align with that idea. Third, if you actually look at at the charges on the indictment, the issue really isn't about pushing Russian interests. It's that they conspired to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act, which means that these international investors and influencers, regardless of where they were coming from, did not register with the Attorney General. The second charge is conspiracy to commit money laundering because all of these payments were funneled through shell companies, likely to hide that they were coming from RT. And where have we heard about shell companies before? But according to CNN, this is entirely about Russia again interfering in our elections, because apparently Lauren Chen and Tenet Media are the reason that so many people are going to vote for Trump, and that without Russian influence, we would all see the truth about how amazing Kamala Harris is. Bottom of this CNN article covering this whole situation, it says, taken together with the indictment of the RT employees, the actions represent the Biden administration's most significant public response yet to alleged Russian influence operations targeting American voters. After the U.S. accused Iran of trying to hack both the Trump and Biden-Harris campaigns last month, Wednesday's actions are a reminder that U.S. officials continue to see Russia as a prominent foreign influence threat to November's election, sources familiar with the matter told CNN ahead of the announcements. Because of that influence, people aren't thinking for themselves. But what really makes my spidey senses tingle on this are, one, the timing, that this is right before another election. So, of course, we have to hype up the Russian influence again. And secondly, it's the fact that this is Merrick Garland's DOJ. It says the Justice Department has charged 2 employees of RT, a Russian state-controlled media outlet, in a $10 million scheme to create and distribute content to U.S. audiences with hidden Russian government messaging, said Attorney General Merrick B. Garland. The Justice Department will not tolerate attempts by an authoritarian regime to exploit our country's free exchange of ideas in order to covertly further its own propaganda efforts, and our investigation into this matter remains ongoing. I'm sorry, the Justice Department will not tolerate attempts to exploit our country's free exchange of ideas. Has this person been to a college campus lately? It sounds to me like Lauren just needs to say, I have never talked to my husband about his foreign business dealings, and he needs to say the same about her. And that's the kind of thing that will get this whole thing dismissed with the Department of Justice. I think honestly, what has really surprised me about all of this is the conservative response to this. And maybe I'm just being naive and need to take all of it at face value, but a lot of them seem to be acting like they know nothing about the DOJ, that this isn't the same agency who has repeatedly ignored the influx of gang members coming into our country from all over the world, who have sent FBI agents to raid the homes of prominent pro-life activists, seem to not care about the social media censorship that has influenced our elections here, or who are actively standing by as our justice system here tries to bankrupt the former president and the current Republican candidate, and don't seem to care a whole lot about the recent assassination attempt on his life. Yet now, the way that so many conservative commentators are responding to this, it's like the DOJ are honest and trustworthy. Anyway, I would love to hear all of your thoughts on this in the comments below. You can tell me if you think I am just completely wrong, that I read the whole thing wrong. I'm not trying to misrepresent anything here. I just got a totally different vibe from actually reading the indictment, and the DOJ pretending in any way to want to protect our free exchange of ideas is an absolute joke to me. Make sure to hit that like button, make sure that you are subscribed, keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one.